I've had the opportunity of experiencing a lot of theme parks in Germany, and out of all of them, I think Bayern-Park is the most underrated. Located about an hour and a half east of the Munich city center and 2 hours north of Salzburg, is a 100-acre family theme park home to multiple roller coasters, a couple thrill rides, many relaxing attractions, and even some animals. Bayern-Park has been around for over 30 years now and actually began its life as a wildlife park. In its debut year in 1985, they were just home to some deer, birds, and other native wild animals, and it wasn't for another 5 years till they would undergo the transformation into the theme park we know today. And that is done with the inclusion of attractions like their summer toboggan run, and that would follow with rapid expansion, eventually getting their biggest roller coaster in 2011, and then undergoing one of their biggest changes as recently as 2023 with a completely new front entrance and Gerstlauer family coaster to accompany it. I experienced my first and only visit to Bayern-Park in summer 2024, and it was included as a sure, why not stop. I had no expectations. I knew they had a Maurer launch coaster, and I knew they had a big drop tower. That was about it. My original thought was they would be a half-day stop, and we ended up spending most of the day here. They're open from 9:30 to 6, so about 8.5 hours, and we stayed for, I think, 5.5 of those hours. So not open and closed, but when we went, it was a pretty quiet day, and we had no problem knocking out everything we wanted to do. The first thing that really jumped out to me about Bayern-Park was just how middle of nowhere this location is. Coming from Munich, we drove through a whole lot of nothing, just a bunch of trees and fields. We were 1 minute away from parking and still couldn't see a thing. Bayern-Park is nestled in a real quiet area just among the trees and foliage. If you had never heard of it, you would never know it was even there. We were first greeted with our charming, modest entrance. I mentioned it was new in 2023. We had no idea it was that recent. It blended seamlessly with the rest of the park. It felt like it had always been there. That was where we got our first look at Francis Xavier. This is a lion wearing a pair of lederhosen. He can be seen throughout the park. He is the main mascot. An entry ticket into Bayern-Park will run you about 37 euros, which is pretty standard across the board for most theme parks in that area. And upon scanning in, we looked around and we were like, where are the rides? Your formal introduction to Bayern-Park feels like a park, like a nature park. Lots of wide open green spaces, flowers, cute pathways, plenty of places to lounge out and sit. The trees are just so tall, and depending on where you're standing, it might be quiet, completely masking the noise of the rides and attractions that are here. Here in the US, you almost never get something like this. And to me, it was another big example of culturally how people do fun. What does their idea of fun look like? And I think for a lot of Europeans, that comes in the form of a relaxing atmosphere. A place that feels welcoming, surrounds you in nature, and is much more focused on your environment as opposed to just packing in a bunch of rides. For me, it was a wonderful change of pace. But I do love some good rides and roller coasters, so let's discuss the park's lineup. I mentioned their newest family coaster, Firlefanz, opened in 2023. It's on the right side of the park near the front. It has a very unique custom layout with a switch track, allowing riders to experience the layout forwards and backwards. It was one of those mind-boggling attractions where I was like standing there trying to figure out how it worked, because it's very different than most roller coasters. I love what Gerstlauer comes up with. I think their creativity is just through the roof with these family models, and I loved experiencing this more than once. Next door is a Gerstlauer Skyfly. I'm a big fan of these attractions. You can also find the park's wave swinger in a small indoor area home to a couple unique self-operated attractions. You can flip a couple times in this little pod that'll take you around in a circle. There's a Sunkid butterfly called Star Shuttle. Some people call these roller coasters, some people do not. I'll let you all decide if it's a credit, but personally, I did not count it. And then finally, one more self-operated attraction where you get in this cage and then rock the vehicle back and forth as you try to make it all the way around. Very interesting and different than most theme parks that we've encountered in Europe. And for the most part, you could tell that this indoor area is actually one of the older parts of the park. It felt a little bit more tacky or cheesy, like it's definitely meant for the kids. Almost like a warehouse that's just been painted to have some light space theming. Nice that they have it if the weather is less than ideal, but in a park filled with so many amazing things, this area definitely felt like an afterthought. Now, Bayern-Park is located on a slight hill, so as you pass through your front gate, you are essentially starting at the top, and then you're going to gradually slope downwards as you go deeper and deeper into the park. You'll soon encounter Froschbahn, which is the park's oldest roller coaster, operating since 1995. Just a simple, small zero coaster in the woods. And one thing I appreciate as you're walking around is you'll see a lot of these leisurely family transport attractions where you hop in some sort of vehicle like a tractor or a pig or a rabbit, and they take you through different themed environments like a farm or barnyard. It's just enough excitement to give a little bit of kinetic energy to this space while still maintaining that very natural environment. I feel like it's meant to evoke the idea that like an actual horse is going through the woods here, but in this magical place, you have the opportunity to ride it. And remember, most of these rides don't have a height requirement, so just about anyone could ride them, and they are all over the place. Some of them more similar than others, but you can just tell that's one of the staples here at bayern-park. It contributes to that relaxed tone that I was talking about earlier. As you continue making your way back, the trees will start to clear, and suddenly the park opens up and you can see a lot more of the rides that make up this space. This includes Frischutz, the park's Mauer launch coaster, directly in the center of bayern-park. There's already a full separate review of this attraction up on the channel. Please go give it a watch if you want to know what this ride is like, because it is absolutely bonkers. One of the most intense roller coasters I've ever ridden, and I don't know if I mean that in a good way. Go give that video a watch. This attraction's crazy. And I think it was around that attraction that we really start to realize the quirky nature that comes with bayern-park. This place has a lot of personality. The queue for Frischutz is like a maze walkthrough. So many different twists and turns and various levels that you have to get through to make it to the station. You might notice the spooky purple looking tower to the side. That's an indoor frog hopper themed to gnomes. The lights go out once you start rising up and they're playing the spooky music, and these little coves will light up as you're bouncing up and down, showing you different scenes as you're rotating. Very atmospheric. I had no idea this was here, and it was so cool. Next door is bayern-park's Rapids, very large attraction and decently well themed too. Hit or miss whether or not you'll get soaked. I was really just trying to avoid getting my socks wet, and sure enough, they were not so lucky. Between this and the log flume, this was definitely the wetter of the two rides. I love a good flume, but unfortunately bayern-park's is a pretty copy and paste layout. Nothing super interesting here. It's one of the older additions in the park, operating since 1997. Next to the flume, I was also surprised to see an attraction that simulates tubing. Like a conveyor belt just brings rafts up to the top. You pull one out, put it in the trough, and then just ride down the hill. This was great. So simple, but very enjoyable. And right across from it is a Mock Rides rotating gameplay theater that opened in 2018. This is about the closest you'll get to like a traditional dark ride at bayern-park. You essentially rotate 4 times around in a circle, shooting at various screens, and you get a score at the end. Not my favorite there, but it serves its purpose. I'll take that over a basic 4D theater, but one day I would love to see them tackle like a traditional dark ride with practical sets. 2 more rides I want to highlight here at the bottom. Achterbahn is a Zero Tivoli that operates with one of the longest trains I've ever seen. Right in the back here, you'll get pulled along these turns as you thread through the trees. Not a bad little old school roller coaster. And finally, that brings us to the park's scariest attraction, the ride you can see from so many different vantage points in the park. It's Voltrum, not to be confused with Voltron, another thrill ride in Germany. This fun-time drop tower debuted in 2020, standing 358 feet tall. It's the biggest in southern Germany, and it is crazy. In many ways, it actually feels a little out of place at bayern-park, and that everything else is so like tame, mild, and family-friendly. And then you have this ride and Frischutz that are the 2 thrill attractions. One day, I hope we see another in-between ride, because I feel like it's a pretty big jump between the family and thrill rides here. But I loved this drop tower. It is a well-themed queue with all these different electric coils. You rotate on the way up, getting beautiful views of the area, and that drop just feels like it lasts forever. Definitely a must-do at bayern-park. But from here, if you're like us, there's a good chance that you think you've seen it all. As we were walking around, we're like, okay, that's everything. And then we notice this bridge just off to the side, and we're like, okay, let's see where this leads. Turns out it takes you to a whole other side of the park, the original side of bayern-park. Remember at the beginning when I said this started off as a wildlife park? To this day, they still have some animals. It's a whole walking trail where you can see deer, even monkeys. We were like, wow, this is random, or it felt seemingly random, not originally knowing its history. And I think in hindsight, considering all that there is to do here, I walked away thinking, I don't think they need the animals. Nothing about the exhibits felt particularly outstanding. You can certainly find much better setups at your local zoo. I'm glad that they gave them plenty of room to roam, but we're talking about only a select few species of animals. Then in the end, it just felt unnecessary. If they were to pull the animals, I don't think the park would suffer. Just my opinion though. The backside of bayern-park loops around this giant lake in the center. There's actually a boat that you can go out on for scenic views. Another leisurely attraction overlooks a castle, definitely giving Disneyland vibes, super random, but I'm here for it. I'm also a huge fan of this round boat ride next door. One of the prettiest rides maybe I've ever seen. It's designed to look like a palace that you're riding in a carriage going through the gardens, and I loved every second of it. There's plenty of variations of this attraction across Europe, but this is the best one I've ever seen, and it's not even close. And then the final attraction that I want to quickly mention here, that summer toboggan run that helped mark the transformation from a wildlife park into bayern-park. It's still here in the back. You hop aboard like a typical alpine coaster vehicle, you get pulled up to the top, and then just ride the hillside back down. Unlike a typical mountain coaster that has rails, this is bobsled style. You still control your speed and that you determine like how fast you go down. And despite the fact that there weren't actual rails, it felt very comparable to a normal mountain coaster. So yet another ride that people will be questioning, is it a credit? While I didn't count the butterfly, I did count this. In conclusion, I walked away from bayern-park with a really positive opinion. I've always felt like Germany had one of the best lineups of theme parks anywhere in the world, and if I had to put together some sort of ranking, I'm not sure that bayern-park would make the top 5, but that's not anything against the property, it's just because there's so much stiff competition. But I guarantee you I'd put it in the top 10 easily. It's a place that, yeah, I hope that I get the opportunity to revisit someday. Personally, I think the best thing they could do to draw me back in is add a new thrill coaster, considering their only thrill coaster opened over a decade ago, 2011. And Frischutz is not for everyone. I think a more comfortable thrill ride that's maybe not as intense would do wonders here. I'm thinking maybe like a Vekoma suspended thrill coaster or a mock family spinning coaster like Storm Chaser at Paulton's. Something that could be considered thrill or family thrill. They already have 2 coasters with launches, so I think something with a lift hill and a non-traditional seating setup would really help make things different, and that would stand out from all the other surrounding parks, the additions that they have. But I want to hear from you all down in the comments below. Have you been to bayern-park? Do you agree with the points that I brought up? If you weren't familiar with it before, I hope you learned something and are maybe planning a trip of your own one day. If you're new to Coaster Studios, please go check out the Park Reviews playlist we have already posted up. You can see different reviews from all over the world, all organized in alphabetical order. Definitely worth a look if you're a fan of theme parks and roller coasters. So thank you guys so much for joining me, and I'll see you next time.